Welcome to the Real Estate Way to Wealth and Freedom podcast with Jacob Ayers, providing actionable content to help you along your journey to financial freedom through real estate investing. As the premier asset class, real estate has helped ordinary people just like you amass fortunes. The benefits of passive income from real estate investing will allow you to live a life you want. And now, your host, entrepreneur, real estate investor, and apartment deal syndicator, Jacob Ayers.
Hi, and welcome to the Real Estate Way to Wealth and Freedom podcast, episode 137. I'm your host, Jacob Ayers. Hey, thank you so much for tuning in to this week's episode. I'm so glad you're here. Well, coming up on this week's Friday Fundamental, we've got a special guest going to be helping me out relay some information to you around some really cool Friday Fundamental topics. So looking forward to that. And on that episode, I'm going to share with you where you and I can meet in some upcoming months for some networking and education together. So really excited about that. Now, today's guest is Clayton Morris. Clayton first aired back on the show in episode 91 way back when. It was then Clayton shared his story as a former Fox News anchor who left the #1 cable news show in the world after achieving financial freedom through real estate investing. Well, Clayton now devotes himself to helping others buy their first rental property, build passive income, and achieve financial freedom through his turnkey rental real estate company. Today, I'm going to be visiting with Clayton about the 7 steps to your first rental property, where Clayton shares so much great advice and actionable content. So really excited to have him back on the show today. So without further ado, let's jump into this week's episode with Clayton. All right, today I welcome back on the show our guest, Clayton Morris. Hey, Clayton, thanks so much for joining us again.
Hey, Jacob, great to be back. Thanks so much for having me.
Hey, yeah, it's
Hello to all of your audience.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Clayton, you first aired on the podcast episode 91 way back when. And so, it's good to have you back on the show, kind of touch base with us. Now, for the audience members who maybe didn't listen to that initial podcast with you on, could you tell us just a little bit about yourself, how you got started investing in real estate, and kind of your unique journey up to this point?
Yeah, absolutely. I grew up with a lot of real, negative associations with money, and that kind of set the pace for my whole life. That's something I fought against my whole life. Hey, money doesn't grow on trees. We're not worthy of money. We're not the Rockefellers. I heard that growing up a lot. So that was kind of the presence with which my parents would talk about money around me. And so I started out in the TV business. I knew I wanted to work in broadcast television. And so I moved across the country and was a reporter for CBS News in Montana. And then, making no money. You make no money, like $23,000, and living all over the country as an anchor for an NBC affiliate in West Virginia, and on and on and on. And then eventually, I was renting the whole time. So I kind of saw that happening. And then eventually I made it to the network, Fox News Channel, the #1 network in the world, and got to anchor the #1 morning show in the world. And I was sort of pinching myself, and a show called Fox and Friends. And that was back before it got like super political and all, just kind of with the crazy stuff that we're dealing with now.
A simpler time.
Right. I mean, we would do fun cultural stories, and I was the fun morning show guy, and we would do politics here and there. We'd have senators on, and we'd interview presidential candidates, but we also had a lot of fun, and the whole time I was there, I was buying real estate. I was starting to invest in single family homes, which is the bread and butter of what I do. And I still believe, single families is to me, it's the best way to build wealth. It's also the sort of the safest way to build wealth too. We can go into that a little bit later, but I was doing that while I was at Fox. And the reason I was doing it while I was there and just doing it on the side, and I built Morris Invest, my company, which was just sort of born organically out of doing deals myself. I had friends and family were coming to me saying, hey, can I buy one of these $50,000, $60,000 houses that you've, rehabbed and placed a tenant in? And I'm like, sure. And so it kind of grew organically from there. Friends referring friends, doctors referring doctors, and then it just kind of exploded. But the reason I was doing is because I lost my job about a number of years before I got to the network, and a station in Philadelphia just didn't renew my contract because they wanted to take the show in a more of a hard news kind of direction. And they're like, you're the fun morning guy. We want to take the show in a different direction. We're not going to renew your contract. And you're only as good as your next contract. In this business, it's still a paycheck. It doesn't matter if you're making six figures. And I flash back to watching my dad lose his job when I was 12 years old. And so if you're a slave to that paycheck, if you're a slave to somebody else and a 401k plan, you're not building true wealth. And so I said, that's it. I'm never going to do that again. I'm going to try to find another job in TV, but I'm going to do something for myself that builds my net worth and builds a safety net that I never have to worry about someone telling me, hey, we're not renewing your contract. And that's what I did.
Yeah, I love it. And that point, Clayton, hits people at different times in their lives. Maybe some people start out earlier. Some people, figure it out later that, hey, you've got to do something for yourself, build wealth, achieve financial freedom, which is, the name of the show here and what we're all about. And you figured that out, midway through your career. So, talk us through, that shift and buying that very first rental property and what was going through your mind and what were your goals and kind of walk us through that very first deal and how'd you do it? And, how can other people do it? People are out there in a similar position. How do they get that very first deal? And then, what do they do next?
So I have 7 rules of real estate investing, which we can get to here, and I can break each one of them down for you.
Yeah.
Before we kind of get into that, I think it's important for people to realize that at some point you're going to screw up. You're going to lose money, right? You're going to work with a bad contractor. You're going to work with a bad property management company. You're going to have an eviction. A friend of mine who's a legend sort of in the multifamily real estate space. He's actually not buying any multifamilies right now because it's just they're way overpriced. And so but he was saying, I've literally been burned by anyone in the title company, realtors, everybody. And has he stopped? No. It's just part of the process. If you build that into your knowledge base before you dive into these 7 steps, if you just know, hey, maybe. And actually, the good news is if on your first deal, you pay a little too much, maybe you get burned by the flooring guy. If on the first deal, you kind of go through that, good for you. Because guess what? When you're in your 50th deal, you'll have already had that. A lot of people kind of wait. A lot of people don't have to deal with it until their 20th deal. You know what I mean? I don't know about you, but I'm sure you've have you ever had an issue in real estate ever?
Oh man. It's funny you say that because your very first deal, my very first deal has gone wrong in so many ways. And I just look at them as lessons learned. I knew going into it, Clayton, like, hey, this is going to be an experiment. Like this was my, experiment property. And I tell a lot of stories about this property. So the audience members know this is my very first property. And it's just everything you could think has gone wrong with it. And right. I just rolled with it and learned all those lessons on my next deal and my next deal. So yeah, absolutely. I love the mentality of going into it, knowing that you're going to mess up, you're going to stumble, you're going to fall. There's going to be, trials and tribulations, but just getting through it.
Yeah. I mean, we recently worked with a provider that just like basically didn't do the rehabs the way they were supposed to, didn't manage the properties the way they were supposed to. And, that was a real disaster. I remember I overpaid for my first deal. To go back to my first deal, I overpaid a little bit too much. It was a short sale when I bought it in Michigan. And I over upgraded. I spent a little too much money on the upgrade. Yeah. I put in appliances when I didn't have to. Most of the houses I do now, we don't even have to deal with appliances. The tenants pay for their own appliances. I put them in myself. I did some extra bells and whistles. I was even asking the guy that I bought it from, I said, should I put in like a Nest learning thermostat? Should I? And he was like, no, are you crazy? $35 Honeywell, thermostat. You don't do that. Are you crazy? This isn't an A-class property. This is a good, solid B-class rental, C-class rental. You don't need to be putting in granite countertops. So right. These things you learn at the beginning, but if you build that in knowing, yes, you are going to make a mistake here and there, you're going to have a bad tenant. If you're managing properties yourself, you might screen a tenant poorly and you might have to deal with an eviction for 4 months while a tenant kind of doesn't pay and maybe files bankruptcy at the last second. You're going to go through that.
Yeah, absolutely. And, if you can go into this thing knowing that you're going to have some pitfalls and some traps and some, kind of punches to the chin. And, if you can protect your downside, you'll make it out the other end just fine. So yeah, going in, just kind of knowing that, there are going to be some rough patches and you just got to get through them and use them as learning lessons, I think is really valuable.
Yeah. I mean, and also bottom line, remember it's real estate. So it's not a stock where it goes down to $0 in value. Like if you end up in a situation where a contractor burns you or there's other issues that happen, remember you still own real estate. You still own a property on land that you have a deed to. And therefore you can you may have to take a little bit of a loss here and there, and you write that off on your taxes. If you're a smart investor, you understand how that works. But it's not $0 in value. You haven't lost everything like a stock market just evaporates. So remember that when you're going into this.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Clayton, let's get into those 7 points you talk about, and these the 7 steps to buying your very first rental property. What do those look like?
Well, I mean, and this is not a plug for this, but really is you're setting a goal. And I've got a freedom number cheat sheet which we give away on our website for free. It's like 3 pages. I
think it's brilliant, by the way, too. I love that. So yeah, definitely.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
So I mean, it is the thing that changed my life, and I'm not even blowing smoke when I say that. When my wife and I said to ourselves, "Wait a minute, we got to set a goal for ourselves. What are we doing? We don't even know our expenses. We don't even know how to figure out how many rentals it'll take to get us to financial freedom." And that's where this freedom number cheat sheet comes from. So it's just on our website. It's free. Just morrisinvest.com/freedom. So number 1, set a goal. So you don't have to use our cheat sheet. I don't care, but just sit down with your partner, sit down by yourself, map out what your expenses look like, and ask yourself the why. Why am I doing this? That's more important than the mechanics. I don't care how Jacob invests. I don't care how I invest. Is it single families? Is it billboards? Is it mobile home parks? Is it multifamily? I don't care. Is it Bitcoin? Is it gold? Is it buying businesses, car washes, like on Breaking Bad? I don't care. Whatever you're doing, as long as you're creating cash flow and passive income. So now set a goal for yourself and ask yourself, why am I doing this? And then what is my financial goal? So for my wife and I, when we figured out our freedom number, we knew that we wanted to hit a certain number of rental properties in order to cover our monthly expenses. And so those monthly expenses were X number of dollars. Great. Then we reverse engineered the number of houses that were spitting out $700 a month in cash flow. It was simple, right? So if I buy another $50,000 property, I buy it for 30 or so, put 20 into it, and it's spitting out $700-800 a month. That's a good number. Now I know that number. Now how many of those do I need in order to cover my monthly expenses? So number 1, you have to put a goal. Know that you want to get to 5 properties, 7 properties, and put that on your refrigerator, on your whiteboard, on your iMac with a Post-it note, so you see it every morning and you meditate on it, and you will hit that goal. Some stuff will start to happen and you will move towards that goal. So number 1 is set a goal. So number 2 on the list, if I can just rattle them off here, is find a property. So there's an old adage, right, which is you only need 2 out of 3 things in real estate. Okay, there's money, there's connections, people, and there's a deal. Now, if you don't have a deal, well, then you need to find people, right? You need to maybe find a realtor who deals with off-market properties, or maybe find a wholesaler in your market, or maybe you call a company like ours, and we have deals. Or you go out on the weekend and kind of hunt. You do some direct mail, try to find something in your own backyard, do that. And then the other piece is the money. Well, if you don't have the money, then chances are you're going to be able to, get at least one of those 3 things. So, okay, you have some people. Now they're able to maybe bring you a deal. They're also probably going to be able to connect you with, with money, with some private money or otherwise. Or you use a bank, or you've got money in the bank. But you need to go out and find a property. And what are we looking for? We're looking for properties that we can add value to. So am I going to pay for the most expensive property on Zillow? No. I'm going to find stuff that's not on Zillow, right? That's not on
ideally,
right? I'm going to try to work and try to, do some direct mail. I'm going to get on the for sale by owner section of Craigslist and just make 100 phone calls. And I guarantee you're probably going to find a deal. That is if you want to be buying in your own backyard. Maybe you're in San Diego. So that's not a good place to invest in single family homes, right? So you need to kind of look elsewhere. You need to go out where you can find more inexpensive properties like we do in the Midwest and other areas. But you got to find a property. Once you've identified a property, maybe you can get leverage on it. Maybe you can, borrow from your 401k in order to buy it. Or maybe you can buy it with cash. You've got a self-directed IRA. There's any number of ways to get funding for properties. So don't let that hold you back. But number 2 is you got to find a good deal. Don't overpay for a property. There's just too many fish in the sea. And as the economy starts to go down, which, all signs seem to be pointing that way in the next year here, then there'll be even more deals out there.
Right.
So
okay.
don't freak out about it. So, all right, you with me? I'm not losing everybody, right? Here, so
No.
number one, setting a goal, finding a property. Number 3, very, very important. You want to calculate the return on investment. Okay, the ROI. Now, I've got a YouTube video where I break this down very, very simply on our Morris Invest YouTube channel. So it's just kind of walks you through with some whiteboard stuff. You can see exactly how to do it. But back of the envelope way of looking at it is I want to take the monthly rent and I want to multiply that times 12. So is it $800 times 12? Then I'm going to multiply that times 0.6 because I'm going to take out 40% for vacancy, repairs, expenses. So I'm going to multiply it times 0.6. That's going to back out those conservative numbers. And then I'm going to divide it by the all-in cost of the property. So am I paying $50,000 for it? And then that'll give you your ROI. So now when I buy my properties, I'm typically between, 7 and 11, maybe even 12% return on investment. That's what I want to see in cash flow coming into me every month or every year. So I want to be between like 7 and 12. So most of the properties like we sell are in that range, maybe mostly between like 8 and 11% return. But occasionally I've got some properties that, a little pricier, but they're more of a B-class play. So the ROI is going to be a little lower, 7%. But look, the stock market, treasury bonds, I mean, you're down in the 3% range?
Oh, it's insulting, yes.
So even if you're at 7%, that's a home run. I mean, there's people that are lending private money to real estate investors at 5% returns, 4% returns, because that's even 1% more than what they could get doing conventional stuff. So remember that even a 7% return and you're increasing your net worth, you're also protecting yourself on taxes. It's a home run any way you slice it. And plus you're getting the equity as well in the property as it appreciates. So don't be discouraged. I mean, kind of keep that range open, and 7 to 12% is a good rule of thumb. Although on the 12%, they're just getting harder and harder to come by. I have a lot in my portfolio that hit that number and above, but on the acquisition side, it's just harder. It's getting harder and harder to find that stuff. I know multifamily guys that are buying stuff at 3%. Return.
Just crazy. But yeah, okay. So calculate the ROI. You've got some simple napkin math that you use. Factor out expenses for mortgage, insurance, taxes, all of that thing, and then you've got an end number you want your house to hit. So really like that. You've got that criteria in mind. So yeah, good.
Number 4 then is you got to take action. So here's where people stop, right? they set a goal. They're excited. They tell their spouse. They got to put just Post-it notes up on their iMac. They found a property they're excited about. They calculated some ROI, and then they find excuses. Like they start like, they got to take the kids back to school. They're going to go play golf, and they just let that slip through their fingers. Well, deals don't. If it's a good deal, deals do not sit. Okay, like. I can tell you just in our company, people are like, why don't you advertise properties on your website? It's like, well, because by the time we would pay a web developer to put a property on our website, it would be sold already. So if a deal is good, it shouldn't be sitting on a website. It shouldn't be sitting there for too long. So you've got to just take action, get it off the street. Multimillionaire friend of mine, long-time real estate investor. He's like, just get paper on it and get it off the street. That's what he likes to say. Get it off the street. So you got to take action. Just get a purchase agreement out there. Call the seller, however you're going to do it. Get it under contract and take action. I know engineers. I've got a lot of engineer friends, and this is where they get hung up. They'll take 2 years of research and then they never take action. So stop it.
Clayton, you're so right there. I don't know if you know, but my background is in engineering. So I see, a lot of my buddies and a lot of my friends and coworkers, you're right. They're stuck in that analysis phase, and they've got spreadsheets for days, and they've modeled, the most intense projections of, this property, but they stop there. They fall short. They don't actually go out and write that offer and, put it under contract. And yeah, this is where this is like the critical point in your journey, in your career, where you've really got to add some fuel to the fire and like take that action, like you're saying. So yeah, I love that.
And what's the worst that can happen, right? That maybe the deal falls through, or, maybe it just doesn't end up shaking out as well as you'd hoped. You end up getting a 6% return because you didn't anticipate some subfloor that needed to be fixed. Okay. Is that the worst thing? No. Now you've gotten those like early jitters out of the way, and you're on to your next deal.
Yeah.
So just do it. And what's the worst that can happen? You can just, if you don't like the deal, put it out on the open market and sell it. There's just people waiting for deals out there. So just sell it at a 5% return to somebody. And you're going to find like an Australian investor that's going to pick that up, because they can't even get anything for under $400,000 in single family homes in Australia. So don't be scared of this kind of stuff. It's ridiculous. All right. Number 5 on the list is get an inspection. So on every property we do, we hire a third-party inspection company to go out, and they do inspections on every property. So we know like what we're buying. We know how much work is involved and all of that. So if you're doing this on your own, always get an inspection. Now this doesn't. So in the retail space right now, like in California and other places where like owners are just like waiving inspections, buyers are just waiving inspections when they're buying $1 million homes, because they're getting into bidding wars, and so the seller is like, oh, that guy's not going to get an inspection, then I'm going to sell it to him, because I don't want to wait 3 weeks while he gets an inspector out there. But we're talking about, properties that probably need work in the investor space, that are going to maybe have been sitting vacant for a while, some broken windows, need to put some new mechanicals in, or the mechanicals might be a year old, 2 years old. So get an inspector out there. It's like $300 or so, $150, $300, depending on what part of the country you're in. Just get a sense of what you're looking at, and there are inspection companies that will even do just like a 5-point inspection, which just, roof, windows, mechanicals, electrical, plumbing, right? The main systems that you're going to spend money on, you can actually save some money. A little tip for you. You don't have to do a full-blown inspection, because as an investor for a rent-ready property, you're not going to do a full gut rehab, right?
Yeah, right.
You want to get the house rent-ready. So you might want to just get a 5-point inspection, save yourself some time and money, and focus on the main systems in the house that usually require the most amount of money and work anyway.
Yeah, and Clayton, we were talking about protecting your downside. I found inspections really are like my biggest hedge against risk. If you can get in there and know before you're going to buy the deal that the HVAC system, needs replaced, or, we've got, some subfloor issues or whatever it is, you can at least make that decision. Yeah, I'm still going to go through with this property. Here's how I'm going to fix it. Or, hey, it's too big of a problem. I'm going to back out. I don't want the deal. So yeah, pay that $150, $300, whatever it is to, get that inspection done. And it'll really save you a lot of headache and worry down the line.
Yeah, and it lets you walk away from the deal too. And we just had a package of 42 properties we were buying, and we ran and paid. We pay for inspections on all of them from a third-party inspection company. We rotate between different companies. Who's available, go. Send us their reports. And yeah, we ended up like canceling like eight of the deals. We just said we only want the other 30, whatever it was. 36 deals, because the other ones just needed too much work, and we just don't need the headache right now. And so we passed on those other ones. And so, it's good to have it in the back pocket, so you can identify and get a sense of what the mechanicals look like, the roof, and so forth. So good stuff on number 5. All right. Number 6, unless you're doing this yourself, and I highly recommend against it, unless you're sort of at a multi-level, multi-family space where you've got, your own property management company under your own, business LLC or something, you want to go out and find a great property management company. Money is gained or lost at the property management phase. I've lost money from bad property management companies. If you haven't, then you're not in the real estate business. That's just the name of the game. Anybody you talk to has just dealt with bad property management teams. So you got to go out and find a great one, but don't go crazy. Bottom line is you want somebody who's been established, who's probably been there for a number of years, who knows the neighborhoods, where you're going to be investing, who has, good software, good back end portal to allow you to walk in and take a look at your stuff when you need to for taxes and tax time. You can log in yourself. You don't have to call up their office and have them mail you a copy. We have 2 property management teams we work with in one of our markets, in my personal portfolio. And one of them still mails us a paper check. And and they're fine. They do a good job, but we're going to move over to this other property management company. I'm going to shift some properties over to this other team down there, because they've got all the software and they send out automated things, and that it just makes it a little simpler. With all the tools and bells and whistles that exist today, there are just some things that should be easily automated, maintenance requests and those types of things. Find out how they're screening their tenants. You don't want to go crazy and over screen people, because then your house sits vacant for way too long. Hedge funds learned the hard way. They were buying C and B class properties, and they were trying to find people that were CEOs of companies to rent their properties. Guess what?
Right. Trying to find A-class tenants and C-class properties.
Exactly. And so, yeah, maybe, the person didn't have the highest credit in the world, but they've got a good paying job, and they don't have any evictions on their record. It's like, you have to use common sense. And that's where a good property management company will have good common sense. They'll also be aware of being able to raise rents, given market conditions and other things like that. And they'll be responsive to maintenance requests, and they'll be able to get in there on a tenant turnover and be able to do some decent work for you. So get a good property management company.
Yeah, and what I really think of when you're looking at hiring a property manager, Clayton, I kind of look at it as, how do you value your time? Are you going to spend your time managing your own properties, which for some people, that's the right thing to do when they're maybe first getting started, or they want to learn the ropes, or they want to build their own property management company? Or do you want to hire that task out and put your time towards better and higher uses of your time, and growing your portfolio and securing financing, big picture items. So that's kind of the way I look at it.
Yeah. And I think it's kind of a thankless job. I mean, they don't make a lot of money, and it's hard work, and especially when you're dealing with C more than B class, but it's a higher touch point property. So they want to make sure they're putting a good tenant in there, because it'll create more headaches for them if they don't. More tenant turnovers. So you want to reduce that. And, the 8% is built into my ROI, or the 10% that I would pay a property manager is built into my ROI number when I'm buying the property back in step 3. So don't forget that I'm already considering paying this property management company before I even buy the property.
Yeah, great point.
Most people forget that part.
Yeah, awesome. So step 7, what is it?
Yeah. Step 7, honestly, it's don't rest on your laurels. Step 7 is rinse and repeat.
I love it.
You want to get out there and rinse and repeat and go and take action and do it all over again. Now, okay, maybe that first property you paid for with cash. You added some value. You've got a tenant in there. Great. Maybe you can pull some equity out of that, do a cash out refinance, pull some money back out with a local bank, whatever, and then go and rinse and repeat. Maybe you have a good private lender that'll lend you, 4%, 5%, whatever. Pull that money back out and do it all over again. So don't stop after that first deal, unless that's the goal. Like, unless that's your goal, you just wanted one property, great. But if your goal is 7, you better keep going.
Yeah, I love it. Well, Clayton, you've got this 7-step process here. And if somebody follows this process step by step, they're really almost assured going to, achieve financial freedom at some point. Like you mentioned, first off, setting that goal, visualizing it, writing it down so it's the forefront of your mind. You mentioned that you're going to achieve that goal if you do those simple steps. So yeah, absolutely love it. And you've got a lot of experience helping people get their first property under contract, buy that first deal, grow their portfolio, achieve financial freedom. And you do it out of like I just like where you come from with it, because you were at one point, in a similar position, trying to build wealth, achieve financial freedom through real estate investing, and you've started helping others organically. So kind of talk about what you do there at Morris Invest and how your team helps other people do this thing.
Yeah, I mean, we do a number of properties per month, where we acquire them. We will go in with our team and assess what needs to be done. We get our inspection. We go in. We say, all right, we need to do countertops, all new mechanicals. The roof needs to be replaced. That's on one we're just doing today, actually. And then we make them available for our clients. They just go to our website. They book a call with us. We spend 30 minutes on the phone, kind of getting to know you. What does your freedom number look like? What are your goals? Where do you want to go? And then if you're ready to jump on a property, great. Well, if we have one available, we send it over to you. You grab it and close like 10 days later, and you're off to the races. And then our team does the rest. We can either get it up and running with our rehab crews that we work with in our different markets. And we work with all kinds of different property management teams in our different markets that we have a long relationship with. And you start to focus on building that portfolio. So, because the bottom line is not everyone can do this on their own, right? If you work long hours. So I started Morris Invest because I know like people are frustrated with, I hear real estate's the number one way to build wealth, but I just don't know how to do it myself, or I work long hours and then my weekends are valuable. I'm not going to be out trying to find properties in my backyard, and there's $600,000 houses in my backyard. So that doesn't work for Clayton's formula. So what am I going to do? So, there was a need there in that way. And we only take on, we only work with certain clients that, that book a call and we feel it's a good fit. So yeah, that's what we do. We try to make it super simple.
Yeah, I love it. And there's a ton of value for somebody getting started investing in real estate to have a trusted partner like yourself, Clayton, that knows those pitfalls and, how to navigate the process and, what kind of properties look at, what markets, how to do it. I mean, there's, you've got many years of experience that you bring to the table and help somebody, learn from all the mistakes and lessons learned of, your own. So great stuff there.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, I mean, we've definitely learned our lesson with, some property management teams we've worked with and what to avoid and, going forward. So we never have those, those problems again. So, you learn from those mistakes and you try to just dust yourself off, keep going, because otherwise someone else is going to buy that property and you're going to be working that W-2 job, driving 2 hours to and from work every day, and spend the next 3 years doing the same thing without adding to your net worth and adding to your portfolio and creating that passive income, giving more, spending more time doing what you want to do in your life.
Yeah, absolutely. And if nothing else, Clayton, I highly recommend all the listeners to go out there and download that Freedom. What is it you call it, Clayton?
We just call it our Freedom Number cheat sheet. It's and all of our resources are just at morrisinvest.com. And if you just go to morrisinvest.com/freedom, it's right there. It'll pop up. You can just download it for free. And we've got the Investing in Real Estate podcast, which we do 3 times a week to help people on the single family journey. So if you're interested in that, you can check that out. Check that out as well, man.
Yeah, great. Yeah, so it's a great resource. I highly recommend. If you're a numbers junkie or, you're interested in financial freedom at all, you'll almost likely have fun filling it out. So yeah, really cool resource that Clayton's put together, completely free. Clayton, you guys over there at Morris Invest also have a ton of YouTube content and really great videos. So tell us, a little bit about where audience members can learn more about you. What are the best resources? And, point us to where we can find you.
Yeah, I think the biggest, where we put our most attention is we do a lot of videos on YouTube. So if you just go to Morris Invest, our YouTube channel, I think we've got close to 300 videos, but we've got an entire private money series. It's a 5-video series that walks you through how to get private money. Natalie and I share sort of our story in a 5-part series, a playlist as well, which I think would really be helpful to your audience if you're just getting started. We kind of walk you through our first deals, how we stumbled, all that kind of stuff. You want to check that out. And we've also got a playlist called Just Getting Started. So, and that's honestly, it's our most popular playlist. It just crushes. So people go over and watch those. It walks you through step-by-step, understanding ROI, how to find your first properties, how to assess property management. All those pieces are in that playlist. So I would suggest that's probably the best place to go.
Yeah, awesome, Clayton. Well, hey, as we're wrapping up here, do you have any parting piece of advice or guidance you'd like to leave with the audience members?
Yeah, I just think don't get one thing that I've really been working on over the past couple of years is, the present moment is the only thing that matters. It's the true, and this is a little esoteric for people, but it really is true. The only version of Clayton that really exists is sort of in this present moment, being here with you, talking and going back and forth in this present moment. I'm not worried about yesterday anymore, and I'm not worried about what tomorrow looks like. So if you can sit down with intention and sort of set your goals and be honest with yourself and just sit there and be in that moment and really visualize your family going forward and how you want things to look for yourself and be present with that, that's how you set an intention. That's how you set your goal, and that's how you can change your life.
Yeah, I love it, Clayton. Well, hey, thanks for that. And thanks for coming back on the show. Once again, sharing so much actionable content with the guest. It's always fun talking with you. So yeah, really, really appreciate you coming back on the show and look forward to having you back on in the future.
Anytime, Jacob. Thanks so much, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, you bet. Thanks, Clayton. All right, that wraps up our episode today with our guest, Clayton Morris. Well, hey, Clayton once again has provided so much great content, actionable resources for us to implement here on the show. I'm really looking forward to having Clayton back on in the future. Well, for all of those resources mentioned in the show, you can find those in the show notes by clicking on your screen or checking out the show notes at www.jacobayers.com. Search for Clayton's podcast and you'll find those. But you'll find morrisinvest.com, and then you'll find the link to that free freedom number cheat sheet that Clayton has put together. Really fun, awesome resource there, so highly recommend that. For more information, resources, and to connect with me, you know where to find me. That's at www.jacobayers.com. Till next week, engineer the lifestyle you want.
You've been listening to the Real Estate Way to Wealth and Freedom podcast, providing you actionable content to build your real estate empire. Nothing on this show should be considered specific, personal, or professional advice. Please consult an appropriate tax, legal, real estate, financial, or business professional for personal advice. The opinions of guests are their own. Information is not guaranteed. All investment strategies have a potential for profit or loss. The host is operating on behalf of the Real Estate Way to Wealth and Freedom, LLC, exclusively.